So, Martin Clunes, I can't thank you enough for coming on my podcast, Chaplin Talks. That's very, very kind of you.
It's a pleasure. I'm sort of not doing anything at the moment, so I don't have to be interviewed by anybody. And I've said no to a lot of people, but just because of the
connection.
The connection, not really. Well, kind of to you, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were in the same house together.
I know.
All those years ago.
Unbeknownst to me as well.
Yeah.
So, just to fill people in, my dad called me up one day, and he says, years ago, Martin Clunes came to the house. You should see if you can get hold of him and see if you'll talk about it. So you very kindly agreed to talk about it. So this was in early 90s for sure, right?
94.
94.
Summer of 94.
God. And you were, what was it? Were you promoting a film at the time? No,
it was in competition.
I was just, okay.
At the film festival. And it was a film that my wife produced. There was a scheme under which Kenneth Branagh made Hamlet, that was a government incentive scheme for tax relief on certain ways to encourage the film industry, and it was so successful that they stopped it actually. But under that scheme, Philip had just raised enough money to make this very, low budget English comedy film, which originally I was going to be playing one part in, and then I asked if I could play the other part, and then the director sort of fell apart, and then so I ended up directing it, because I directed in the theatre a little bit as well.
Okay.
And I think it was our distributor or exhibitor, not the exhibitor, sales agent managed to get it into competition. I don't know actually how it got into competition, but we cleaned up. I think I got Best Actor.
Did you?
I think got Best Film. We got the cane door, which is in our office, which is a golden cane.
Yeah.
And we were never off the podium, and it was because I was really young. I'd never directed anything before. I met the woman who remains my wife, and was falling in love, and then, I so loved that act of directing and going there and meeting other directors, and the best people to hang out with at the festival were the shorts guys.
Okay.
Because they were never going to buy a yacht on the proceeds of their movie anyway, so there was a purity to their. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was I just remember there was a bar or restaurant with a lovely courtyard under a beautiful tree at night, just hanging out with people, and everything was possible, and it was all exciting. And then the next day, your dad kindly invited us over to your house, and of course we knew the house from Attenborough's film of Chaplin.
Yeah.
But it was exciting to see it, and also those gardens. My God.
Yeah. That's so funny.
And the falabellas.
Yes. Had three little ponies running around.
They're not ponies.
No?
They're actually not. No, they're tiny horses.
So they are tiny. Okay, well there you go.
A pony is the tiny ponies are miniature Shetlands, the little fat things.
Yeah.
But they're quite nicely proportioned falabellas, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, because they're not ponies.
Okay, how funny. We always called them ponies growing up. There you go, you learned something new.
They're your beasts. They don't mind what you call them.
And would you say this film, so the film's called Staggered, so you directed it as your first directorial film,
Yes.
directing a film. Would you say this was the beginning of your career, more or less? Was it?
Well, no. I'd been knocking around for a while. I graduated. So I'd been knocking around for about 12 years as an actor.
Oh, really? Okay, wow.
And I'd started doing a show called Men Behaving Badly, which is where people sort of learnt my name.
Yes. Okay. So it was okay.
Yeah.
That film is basically the original Hangover. You got the Hangover nowadays, the movies about the guy who wakes up somewhere completely different, has to get back to the wedding.
Yes.
Sort of the original version.
I suppose it was, yes. No tiger.
Yeah. It's a great movie. Really great movie.
Yeah.
And my dad said, I don't know if it's true or not, that in order to get the film done, you had to get a lot of extras, and the people that were in the filming locations, you invited them to be in the film.
That was Philippa's idea. She got a load of people I don't know how you did it in those days because there wasn't all that internet stuff, but she put the word out that they were looking for investors in a film. And one of the advantages to being an investor was you could be in it. And so we had, because there was right at the end, there was a huge wedding scene in a great big marquee. And it was filled with the most willing on-site group of extras you ever met, and but she paid every one of them back with profit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and all the actors.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. It was the second most successful English film that year, slightly obscured by the first most successful film that year, which was Four Weddings and a Funeral.
No way. Oh, that's great. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so...
We benefited from having our trailer on the back of that film, actually.
Actually, funny enough, I was, on the way here, I was listening to Desert Island Discs.
Oh, yeah.
Your one. And the music choice was amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I loved every single song.
Oh, thank you.
I was very surprised to hear that your grandfather was a music hall performer.
Yes, and my grandmother. Yeah.
And your grandmother.
Yeah. They were part of a troupe called the Brownies, or amongst other things. I'm sure they hopped from troupe to troupe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only ever knew my grandmother, and she was very, very old.
Okay.
She died when I was quite young.
Okay. Interesting. And do you think, coming from a family background, because obviously your father was an actor, do you think it was a natural kind of thing, career path for you?
I think so, because I was 8 when my dad died, so he wasn't around to sort of put me off or say, don't do that for God's sake. It's a mug's game. So, and I think, at 8 you don't know what you want to do you? But I think because people do ask children, don't you, what are you going to be when you grow up? And because men in my family did that, I just said, I'll do that. And in actual fact, I did drift into it slightly, like a little open-toed. I didn't quite know. I didn't quite know what I wanted from it. I've clarified that now, but
okay.
I didn't know what. Yeah, I just knew that I seemed to get away with it, so I'd carry on.
Yeah, fair enough. You found something you're good at.
Yeah.
Have you been to the church in Covent Garden in London? They've got all the plaques of different actors.
Yes, my dad's in there.
Yeah, so is my granddad.
Of course.
So, which is just, it was funny.
Yeah.
And do you remember much from the house itself, coming to Switzerland, being in Vevey at the comedy festival?
I remember sort of coming in and going through. I think they were from the front door. Could you see straight through to like French windows at the back into the garden? And there was a very elegant terrace at the back.
The terrace is amazing. Yeah.
And I remember everything being very tasteful, and quite restrained, not over the top with the decor. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. My dad always said my grandfather didn't like going over the top. I think certain aspects of his life, staying in nice hotels for sure, but in the house itself, there was nothing crazy over the top furniture-wise, at least, and paintings.
Well, he obviously had inherent taste, because I think half of all of the work that we all do there is an element of your personal taste. Yeah.
How familiar were you with Chaplin, my grandfather's work, before going to the festival? Do you know? Or?
So my generation, you would watch old films on a Sunday afternoon, or they'd be around because there were. Well, I suppose this was the era when children's films or family films were like Herbie.
Yeah.
Volkswagen with a heart of gold.
It's true. Yeah, I had forgotten about that Herbie.
But there was that kind, and I'm sort of frequently sort of quite shocked that it seems to have vanished. But my daughter shows, she's 23. She never had the slightest bit of interest in looking at what went before. But I think because there's so much of what there is now. Do you know what I mean? She's working her way through all that with Pixar and all that. And they're fabulous. And I used to love scooping a load of them up and going to the cinema in Yeovil and watching the new Pixar. But I don't think, we had to make her watch Alien.
Oh, wow. She must have been...
Well, she was like...
Oh, really?
Because we at Sigourney Weaver did a couple of stints in Doc Martin, and they came to stay for the weekend, and we were, telling her, because she only watches what was aimed at her.
Yeah.
The significance of Sigourney Weaver.
I know, iconic.
Yes. For one, somebody who does inhabit that word, yeah. So we said, well, you've got to see this, and she was, all right, like that, but she was crapping it.
Yeah, I was going to say. I always remember my mum going on about The Exorcist and how she went to the cinema to watch The Exorcist and it was so scary and all this kind of stuff. By the time I got around to watching, I'd already seen a lot. Like, you know, It at the time was quite big when I was a kid.
Okay, yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And I was used to seeing it. So when I did come around to watching The Exorcist, I was a bit like, oh.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was a disappointment.
Well, it was a bit like, it's obviously fake. As a
Right,
kid,
yeah.
it was strange.
But there was no CGI then, you know, to do those. They had to be a lot more inventive, like your grandfather.
Yes.
And all those guys. I mean, your health and safety would shut them down in a second nowadays, wouldn't they?
No, it's true.
Absolutely.
Well, you look at Buster Keaton. Have you seen some of with the house falling down? Or when he's on the train and he's knocking over, he's at the front of a train, there's a big bit of wood, he has to knock it out the way. God knows what would have happened there.
I have a stuntman to walk fast.
Oh, amazing. And on Doc Martin as well, you had Claire Bloom, right, who played your mother.
Yes.
And she was in my grandfather's film, Limelight. She was the main role in it. She had the lead in it.
And she was married to Rod Steiger, who we were looking at earlier, who was...
Was she married to... Oh, I had no idea.
What's his name, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Comes full circle.
Yeah, weird. Yeah, she was amazing. And she came, but she played her own ghost in our Christmas episode.
Did she?
Yes, and she was so... I think she kind of relished the role because, you know, our joke was that Doc Martin was loathed by his parents.
Oh, I see.
I don't know why I'm laughing, because it's not a funny set of circumstances, but we always enjoyed punishing that man.
And your father?
Yeah.
He was big into stage shows, right?
He was what they'd call in the day a classical actor, yeah.
So what, Royal Shakespeare sort of stuff?
Yes, he was at Stratford. He did a season there. He did a lot at the Old Vic. And he, when Rex Harrison had a success in My Fair Lady and it transferred to Broadway, my dad took over with Julie Andrews.
No way.
Yeah, way.
God, a rich family history there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a great...
And he was, he pops up in the odd... I think that somebody at the British Film Institute very kindly sent me a DVD, and that during the war he'd done some of these public information films because he was a conscientious objector, so he had to go to court-martial to not fight, so he drove an ambulance and things and was doing these public information films, and I can see him aged 20, 21 in front of the camera. And I remembered that feeling when I first started working with a camera. Like, why is it?
Oh, really?
Has it seen my chins? And all that sort of physical worry. I could see it in him as a young man. I knew what it felt like.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And yet he'll go on stage maybe twice a day or
Yeah, but he was young. You know, he was 20. Yes. I guess he'd have that confidence to go on stage. Yeah, but he wasn't a name. You know, he wasn't playing big parts. I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. My grandfather, when he had this tramp character all the way through up until his film Modern Times.
Yes.
And he made this film, I don't know if you've seen it, a film called City Lights. If you haven't, you should watch it. It's a beautiful film about, he's a tramp. He sees this blind flower girl, and he basically goes through everything he has to get money to try and restore her eyesight. And when that film originally came out, it's considered one of his masterpieces.
Yes.
And when that film originally came out, talking movies had already happened. But he refused. He was like, I can't give my character a voice. It's not him. So I can imagine a bit like your dad going in front of a camera. It's a bit like, the pressure, the pressure of having to...
Yes, but there's a funny thing because I've, fundamentally made my living in television. But I was aware growing up in the 60s and 70s that, because we lived on Wimbledon Common, and there were the odd other actor around there who you'd see at the school gates or whatever. But there was this sort of snobbery about, I'm doing a telly.
Oh, really?
Oh, she's doing a telly now, but really to go to the Old Vic again, that was what she lives for. But just doing a telly, really,
Oh, really? Well, nowadays that's what it's come to as well. With all the TV series coming out, if you're in a TV series, you're probably at the top of your game.
I love working in telly. Yeah, it's been very good to
me. And how long? So you were in Doc Martin for how many years?
18 years.
That's it.
80-something episodes.
I mean, you build
Philippa, my wife, produced every single episode.
Really?
It's our company that makes it.
God, 18 years. You might have.
But we did it every other year, so it's 10 seasons over 18 years.
Oh, but still, I mean, it takes a lot of work. I can't imagine me doing this podcast, putting an episode out every once in a while.
Yeah,
is already pretty tough work.
it's kind of 86 hours of, all shot on film. On
really?
On celluloid, yeah.
Why is that?
Because when we started doing it, most television dramas, comedy dramas, were shot on Super 16. And the digital revolution happened, but we'd only ever had compliments on the way it looked. So, and I like that discipline because I know it.
Wow.
It's a good discipline for an actor because there's a rhythm to it that's just gone now. And I'm going to sound like an old fart here, but because with the digital you can just
redo it,
spread digits everywhere all you want. But when you're running 25 frames a second through a camera, and each frame has to be processed, it's like there's a discipline. It's like
don't mess up.
When somebody says turnover, sound running, speed, that's a rhythm that you start. Now you get turnover, sound running. Wow. So anyway, I've got the gearbox from a '74 Chevette. So they'll finish their story, but the actors are already on their toes because they're going sound running, speed. Whoop! Someone's going to say the next thing that's happened is someone's going to say action.
Yeah.
But nowadays you go, oh, I'm just going to move this flag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like you're saying, it's an expensive way of filming things as well. Though.
Yeah, but now with the digits, doesn't matter, does it?
Well, it's the same thing in the music world.
Yes.
The music world now, you know. So next to Vevey, there's a town called Montreux.
Oh, yes, we went there.
Ah, you went to Montreux, yeah. There was a music studio there, which my dad worked in as an assistant sound engineer, and everyone recorded there. From Queen eventually bought the studio.
Wow.
David Bowie recorded there.
Wow. So that was his commute along the lakeside to Montreux. Jeez. Nice.
Yeah. But he said they would sit in the back practicing all day long to make sure they got their parts right.
Yeah.
Because when they went in, they couldn't mess it up.
Yeah.
You know, because there's not enough space on the tape to start redoing everything.
Yeah, and tape, but then you'd have to splice and stuff like that, which is not like all these digits.
Yeah. How interesting. I didn't realize that. So 18 years.
Yep.
Well, so you must have built some pretty special relationships with everyone as well.
Yeah, and with the place, there's outside the house we use for the surgery, there's like a sort of terrace, and I've stood on that waiting for. There's a lot of waiting in the acting game, and just gazing out to sea and across the harbour there. I've probably spent more time looking at that view than I have any of the views on my own.
Is that right?
Yeah,
really.
I think so. I don't stand around here much. I don't have to wait.
Yeah. Well, you're a busy man as well.
Yeah.
And who would you say were your influences then?
I don't know. When someone you're a fan of, if they become an influence, I guess. I don't know. I was very caught up in the Monty Python sort of humour, the kind of absurdist thing. But I find looking back at that now, less so.
Oh, really?
It hasn't aged well for me.
Okay. I'm sure lots of people will say that.
Yeah, but I don't really know. Roger
Moore, yeah, why not? But you obviously grew up, I mean, you've got a very good sense of humour. You do a lot of comedy. Were there any comedic influences then, really, or did you just
the people I liked? I mean, I'm a magpie for finding other people's jokes or whatever. I'll hold on to them.
Really?
Yes, and sometimes like a sort of Tourette's, they come out when they're least useful.
How interesting. So why do you think you fell into the whole comedic sort of...
I don't know. I don't know. All kinds of psychological scarring, probably.
Well, laughing makes things a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yes, and it buys you... Although I must say, I'm lucky enough to travel a lot at the moment. I make things about islands all around the world.
Okay.
And when you're... half the job is putting people at ease, the people I'm interviewing, who are the stories. And so when you're using an interpreter and you don't have a common language, but even when you do have a common language, you can just get a little chuckle out of someone. you kind of got an indicator into
But it's true. Suddenly the ice breaks a little bit, doesn't it?
it's a kind of universal handshake in a way.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
connection of sort of entry level, I don't know, diplomacy or whatever. But and I suppose that's a skill honed at school to stop someone hitting you or something, or bullying. You know, any of the I don't know, any of the
That
things.
is true. I mean, when if you turn out to be the class clown, suddenly people like you more.
Yeah, I think I'm desperate and remain desperate for people to like me. Desperate.
Wow. I mean, you're very honest.
Needy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look, silent comedy back then, in the 1920s or even before, you didn't need an interpreter. You just put the film out, and everyone saw it. Didn't matter where you were from.
Yeah.
Everyone knew what was going
Yeah.
on. You could laugh about all the same things. It was a universal language in that sense.
Did you ever read Harpo Speaks? Harpo
No,
Marx?
no.
It's a great read.
Is it? Okay.
So like Chico, was played the piano. As the mum, Minnie Marx, who pushed them all into it against their will, she sent Chico for the piano lessons on the understanding he came home and taught the others what he just learnt.
Really?
Yeah, and like Harpo didn't really pay attention, but he could sort of play a tune, and he got a job playing for silent films. But he'd just play the same tune, but slower, or faster, or jollier.
I need to read that.
Oh, it's a great read. It's a great read.
And, God, to think in those days as well, my grandfather used to come up with a film twice a week, you know, to make somebody sure. You just knock them out. Just go, come up and knock it out, you know.
And then, I wonder if the film would then get constructed on set rather
yes,
than...
it did.
Yeah,
it did.
nice.
So basically said many times you'd just go on set. There'd maybe be a guy dressed as a policeman.
Right.
Maybe there'd be a woman. And then suddenly they'd just start messing around, and then they'd just come up with a story, and that was it. That was
and
the
then
film.
they'd set the shots to capture that.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, I think, I mean, one of the joys for me is that collaborative process where a thing becomes bigger than the sum of its parts, if you know what I mean. Which is, you know, sounds wanky, doesn't it? But you know, the magic or whatever it is, you can with a number of talents, you have a bigger thing.
Yeah.
But nowadays everything is so prescribed from an office, from someone who's not present. You count. There's a shot list. There's a storyboard. You can't change a line. Whereas all my working life, there's always, not always, but just sometimes you need to knock a corner off a line, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
the rhythm right, or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
you say, or how about if I didn't know and it didn't mean that, it meant the opposite, and then the thing grows and it gets better.
Yes, it's true.
I'm imagining that's how your
In
grandfather
the early
did it.
days, for sure. And then when he started, because he eventually built his own studios and started making his own
Of course,
films.
United Artists.
Yes,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Once he started doing those films, then he became very, you know, he was very focused. It would take him years and years and millions of dollars at the time to make a film like City Lights.
Right.
And because he wanted everything to be perfect.
Right.
And, I mean, one of the big scenes, like talking about Chaplin, the Attenborough film,
Yes.
he spent so much time thinking, like, how can a blind girl mistake a poor man for a rich man? How is that, you know, how does he, and he spent months or even years trying to think of this idea. And eventually, you know, he came up with the idea that a rich man leaves his fancy car, it was like a Rolls Royce or something, and she hears the door slam to this really nice car, and he happens to be next to it. And she mistakes him to be the rich man leaving the car.
Gosh, I know I've seen that. I know that Flower Girl thing.
Yes.
So I must have seen that whole film, because we didn't watch things in YouTube-sized clips when I was a kid. You know?
Yeah.
You watched the whole film.
So later on in life, he really became very particular about what
his
should
direction.
be the And as well, he was one of those directors who if he could act every single part, he would have.
Right.
Him and Marlon Brando didn't get along very well.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So because you know
he was trying to prescribe how
he was
to
just
do
saying,
it.
look, this is what I want. You have to act it like this. He'd act out the part and just expect him to add Marlon Brando to act it back.
Okay.
And it didn't go very well.
Not quite his style, was it? No. Marlon, I'm going to have to learn the line. Do you mind?
Yeah, no, that's really funny. If you read there's a book, I think it's in his own autobiography, he talks about, there's interviews as well of Marlon Brando not enjoying my grandfather's company at all. But my dad, who was on set at the time, said he had the best time ever, and he was the nicest guy ever as well. Are there any comedians that you're a big fan of nowadays, or?
I must say I do enjoy Ricky Gervais's stand-up, the ones on Humanity and things like that. I've watched that a few times, and I love watching Would I Lie to You? Do you ever watch that?
Yes,
it's my favourite.
I watched a clip of you on there.
Yes, I did do it.
And
once,
there's
yes.
what was you're talking about? You got fired by Lord Alan Sugar.
Oh
or
yeah, it was
something.
all made up. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was all made up. But you had everyone. You could. Was it all completely made up?
Yes, I mean it's really true. You don't see that question until you.
Okay, so there wasn't elements of the story that
No,
was
I
true.
never worked for.
I mean, you did it. You did it so well. You did it so well.
I know in those days they had Liar of the Week, and I got it.
Oh yeah, no, that was incredible.
But I love. I'm sort of happy with my punter status with that show now. You know, we watch it as a family, and I literally cry laughing. And it's so funny because in the old days, if you had comedians on a thing together, they'd be like little terriers nipping at each other, trying to top each other. Whereas the three of them, they just dig each other so much and they all occupy a different space, and that makes the guests feel so comfortable enough to flourish. Yeah,
you're a great liar. Well, mind you, if you're an actor, that's basically what you do for a living, right?
Exactly, make shit up.
And would you say that Doc Martin is the beginning of your love for animals, or was it?
Doc Martin?
Yeah.
No, because he hates dogs.
But did you know you worked with animals on the show? Do you see what I mean?
Yes. I'd sort of worked with them a little bit before, but not as much as with the dogs on that. And Dodger, who was our longest-serving dog, who's still with us. He's 60. He must be knocking on 17 now. He's retired. But he's got a bit of dementia, but he's still going. He's lovely. But Sonia Turner, who trains them all, she's got 3 terriers. She's got Dodger. She's got Paddy, who's the dog in Midsummer Murders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who's guested with us. And Taffy, who was our last dog to replacement for Dodger, who's terrific. And they've got so many more tricks than we ask them to do, because we only want them to be dogs. We don't want them to, because they can all hide their eyes. She goes, hide your eyes, and they all go like that. Wow. And incredible tricks, but which they do in their other work. But for us, it was just being dogs. But yeah, I relished it. But I relish the working with the props, the rubber gloves, the opening of packets that doctors have to do and stuff like that. It's all I like all that stuff.
Okay, but once again, if you're working with actual film, working with animals, I mean, it must be stressful as well, trying to get the right takes and everything.
To be honest, they're more reliable than a lot of the human cast.
You always hear, don't work with children or animals.
No, not in this case. Yeah, children, really? Yeah, babies. We had so many babies in that show. One series, we had 12 babies. Yeah, really annoying. I
mean, where do you get these dogs from?
Sonia. I mean, she's
really?
part of a company called Stunt Dogs, and they provide a lot of the animals around the place. And then if you want horses, then you go to the Devil's Horseman. There's all these firms are out there. But what Sonia, I mean, I've seen her training, bringing dogs on and working with them, and it's so loving, and it's so you'll get nothing out of a dog unless you make it fun, They're hedonists.
Speaking of which.
Yeah.
And they must have like treats or something. Like, I don't know, if you wanted to do a certain thing, you have to there's like little tricks.
Yeah, but it's best if you don't, because they just focus on that. I had Jim. We did a thing about Arthur Conan Doyle called Arthur and George from Julian Barnes's book, and Jim played my dog in it for a few scenes, and he was really good. Apart from we did a long tracking 2-shot with what they call a walk and a talk, with a long stretch of track like that, and Jimmy was just walking at my heel because he didn't know where he was. He wasn't off, looking for rats or mice. But throughout the whole scene, he was fixating on the boom, the hairy wind gag on the boom.
He was ready
to kill that squirrel when this stops.
Okay. That's so great.
Yeah.
Do you have a pivotal moment in your career that you can think of?
There's two. There was the obvious one, Memhaven Birdley, where people learnt my name. But before that, I used to direct a bit, and I directed a pub play of Alan Silito's book called The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, which just had a cast of 2 in a very minimal but really effective set. And the British Council took the show on, and we toured it to Nigeria, former Yugoslavia, just as the war was starting.
No.
Yeah. Cyprus and somewhere else, but especially Nigeria. I'd never been to Africa before, but I wasn't in it. I directed it, but we'd go and we'd do the performance, and then the next day in Nigeria we'd do workshops with students and things like that.
So nice.
And it just seemed so wholly worthwhile. I thought, okay, I get it, because I'd always think I'd been slightly worried that I did a stupid thing, dressing up and prattling around.
Yeah.
There's that, but I'm okay with it now. I know what use it is to people. but that was a turning point within me. I think that I thought this is really nice, because especially in Nigeria they used theatre to express political things a lot, and also really funny people. Really, we had a lot of laughs.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Never been.
Yeah.
I'd love to go.
I've spent a lot of time in Africa, but Nigeria was a great starting point.
Have you ever been to a country and you get there and then you realize, actually, how do people even recognize me here? Like, you're surprised to be...
No, I don't. No, I don't.
No?
No. I'm always surprised if they do.
Really?
I don't. It's not a thought. I don't have a recognition gauge.
Yeah. No, it's like you've got that tribe that has a Prince Philip picture.
Oh, the Yakel,
yeah. You know,
yes.
they said like it's quite interesting.
Yes.
And you do hear stories of
yes.
that sort of thing.
No, but do you know I know them?
Really?
Yeah. I've spent time with them.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, on Vanuatu.
Yeah, that's it, Vanuatu.
Yeah. I've filmed with them.
Ah, did you?
Yeah. I thought that's why you brought them
No,
up.
no, not at all.
Yeah. And we took them an up-to-date picture, sadly not long before the Duke died, but they were really nice people. Really.
Don't they do this whole bungee jumping thing on Vines?
That's not the Yakel, no. They have wicker penises.
Do they?
No, they just subsistence farmers, there's a lot of it in the Pacific. People, they call it a garden rather than a farm, because it's where they grow what they live off, and that's their gig. But they do take visitors. But no, they were absolutely charming and really keen to show us their garden. And,
really?
And share food with us.
I saw. Funny enough, I saw a clip of you. I mean, you've done so many documentaries. I've noticed, like series of different animals and stuff. I saw you getting licked on the face,
by
a wolf, by some guy saying, "Just stand there,
be still."
And
we'd all been told to eat no meat the day before, and I forgot. Nice wolf, though, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
they were cool.
It must have been scary. I mean, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Yes, I know. It's not. It's silly, isn't it? I think it's because there's a camera there. I kind of think I'll be okay. It's not. I abseiled in an episode of Doc Martin.
Did you?
In a suit, bossy shoes, and a medical bag.
Very brave.
Very brave.
I wouldn't be doing that.
What did you do?
That's like horse riding. My sister adores horses. My sister Laura, she loves riding. Everything about it. Since I can remember. She's 1 year older than me. And ever since I can remember, she loves riding. I just won't even go near a horse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just not my...
Aren't they?
I just panic.
Oh, do you? Well, fair enough. They're big idiots.
Do you ever get worried about like injuries and stuff for your career or anything like that?
No, I don't, because my boys they're cart horses, so we don't go racing or jumping. I plod around. I don't like doing anything at anybody else's pace. My daughter, on the other hand, is an event rider, so she goes cross country, show jumping, and the things she throws that horse over are just terrifying. And there's always a huddle of terrified parents at every event.
Oh, I would imagine so.
But the joy in seeing the shared ambitions of her and the horse, and their bond and their relationship.
You have to have a real connection. And my sister always said to me as well, she's like, look, if you're going to be nervous around the horse, it's going to be nervous as well. Yeah, it's going to be nervous. Just, relax.
Because if you're sat on them, a lot of people think that horses don't like me because I'm scared of horses. It's like, it's not that they don't like scared people. It's like that they're more scared than you, and if you're scared, who's looking after them? Yeah. You have to say to the horse, don't do that, we're doing this now. Not being scared, if you can.
You're directing it, I guess, in a sense, right? Wow. Have you heard of the show jumping show in Vevey?
Yes.
In Switzerland?
Yes.
It's crazy. I went to go see my sister there. And much later on in the competition, there's this thing where, I don't know what you call it, but they put a jump up, then two people, or there's a whole bunch of them, start jumping over it, and if one knocks it over, they're out, and it keeps going higher and higher and higher.
Puissance.
Yes.
The wall, yeah.
I mean,
mental.
I could not believe my eyes. No. And some of these guys are falling over, and God knows.
No, I've seen it at Earl's Court, and sometimes it's so high you just see the ears.
It is. I've never been so nervous in my life watching a thing, holding on to.
Your sister does puissance.
No, she doesn't. No. Luckily not.
No, because some people won't even use their best show jumping horse for that. They'll go, have I got a nutter for you? They have a puissance horse that's nutty.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, listen, I can't not thank you enough for taking the time to do this.
It's a pleasure.
And I know lots of people are going to be very happy to see you on as well.
It's a pleasure.
And my dad, Eugene, has very, very fond memories of you
likewise. It was a very special time. My first time in the Alps as well. And with no snow, everything was green.
Yeah.
And so green. I'm just imagining your sister show jumping in all those green.
Yeah. No.
That grass. No wonder the chocolate's so nice. The cows have got decent grass, haven't they?
Yeah. No, it was wonderful, fond memories. Once again, if you ever want to go to the museum, you have to get in contact. Or bring your family, bring whoever you want.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to see you again.
Yes. Thank you.